Hello and welcome to Sage Astrology. My name is Sage, here as your eye into the sky, letting you know what the cosmic events are for the week, why they matter, and how you can use this information in your everyday life. This week, we are finally entering into eclipse season, and a lot is going on. This month in general is one of the most potent and sensitive astrological months of all of 2025. So if you haven't been tuning in, or maybe you've been listening a little bit and then you forget and you tune out and you go on about your life, this is the time to really listen in, to tune into what's been going on, both externally as well as what's been going on within yourself, because a lot is transpiring in our birth charts, in our cosmos, and in our collective. Now, the Pisces part of our chart has been getting hit a lot lately. If you're a Pisces listening, happy solar return. I am offering 50% off solar return readings as well as basic birth chart readings if you are a Pisces sun sign listening right now, or you have a loved one with a birthday around the corner, or maybe they just had it and you're interested in gifting them something. A birth chart reading, a solar return chart reading, one of the best gifts. Link is below for that. Now, again, let's regroup ourselves because a lot is going on, and I feel like there's so much happening. A lot of astrologers are posting about all of the craziness of March. I feel like we need to just take a deep breath and regroup and see where everything is. So, like I said, the Pisces part of our chart has been getting lit up over the last month. We have got the North Node here, we've got Saturn here, right? We've got Neptune in its final few weeks in this sign. Neptune has been in Pisces since 2012. It'll be moving out of Pisces at the end of this month. That alone is historic. If that was the only thing happening in March, I would already say this was an historic month. But of course, that is certainly not all. Right, so we are now entering into eclipse season. On Friday, we have a full moon in Virgo. And yes, this video, we will go through exactly what you can expect according to your rising sign for this full moon. We've also got Mercury stationing retrograde the day after this full moon. It is an eclipse, which means that there's a lot of cosmic energy. Now we're adding a Mercury retrograde, which of course I'm going to get into that, but we already know what Mercury retrograde is known for. Venus has been retrograde in Aries since the beginning of March. And so, as we're moving through this video and as we're really reflecting back, I encourage you to think about what happened for you at the beginning of March, what's been going on, especially in terms of love and money, as those are two areas Venus does rule over. And of course, this is only going to continue because then we've got Mercury going retrograde in Aries as well. And that's going to be a very interesting conversation between those two planets that'll be playing out throughout the month of March and even into the beginning of April. So, again, a lot is transpiring. This full moon eclipse is a blood moon. And if you are in I want to say it's North America for sure. I want to even say it's the Northern Hemisphere, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Definitely look at where you are located and if you're able to see the eclipse. But I am pretty sure that if you are at least in North America, we should be able to witness it. Again, check your time zone. But if you are able to catch this eclipse, it should actually resemble what literally is known as a blood moon, because the moon should actually turn a sort of like a shade of red. Now, this eclipse has been, a kind of a continuation, or will be a continuation of what started for us back in September. I'm going to dive into all that in the upcoming section of the video where I dive deeper into this full moon eclipse. But as we go into that, do a little bit of homework, maybe pause this video and just think for a moment about what was going on and what maybe started for you in September of 2024. So just a couple months ago, because this full moon is a continuation of that story. Whatever story started for you in September, this is kind of like the second chapter, so to speak. So we're really getting into the storyline and we're really seeing how it's developing, and a lot to look into and a lot to unpack. So again, if you haven't already, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel, that you're liking the videos, sharing them out, and even commenting. I've been appreciating all the comments and just seeing how this information is resonating with all of you. Birth chart readings are available. Hit the link below if you want a more in-depth understanding. Birth chart readings are honestly the foundation of where I recommend everybody begins in your astrological journey. It will set the stage for everything else that these videos get into. So again, link is below if you're interested in that. And let's dive into this full moon eclipse in Virgo, as well as the Mercury retrograde in Aries. On Friday, March 14th, we have a full moon eclipse in Virgo. But again, this is unlike your regular full moon because it is also an eclipse. So Full moons are when the sun and the moon are in two opposite signs. Currently, we have the sun in the sign of Pisces, which means that on Friday, the full moon is in the sign of Virgo. Pisces and Virgo are opposite signs, and yet they share the same axis, which means that they essentially are like sister signs and they complement one another. And so, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we have had a lot of Pisces energy getting activated in our charts. We might even be feeling it in a collective sense if we tap into the collective energy. Pisces energy, we might be feeling more emotional, more sensitive, even a bit more psychic. We might be tapping deeper into our dreams and maybe even connecting more with our soul with meditation, with spiritual or religious practices that are much more centered in our faith. And ideally, we're moving away from the fear, which again can happen with Pisces energy. But the North Node being here hopefully is reminding us of what we're meant to be doing and to push past that fear. Now, having all this energy in Pisces is very mystical. It's very magical. It can also get us lost in a bit of a daydream type of state where maybe we are kind of idolizing our dreams, or maybe even having some illusory tendencies where we're not seeing things clearly. So then you enter in a full moon in Virgo. Taking out the eclipse for a second, the full moon in Virgo is normally a very stable lunar energy that enters in as sort of like an anchor to the Piscean seas. We've got all of these waves of emotion during Pisces season, and then enters in the Virgo full moon that says, hey, wait a minute. I know we want to make sure that we reach our goals and we have these big dreams, Pisces, but do they make sense? Should we maybe revise and look over the details one more time? Should we proofread and edit before submitting, right, Pisces? Because again, sometimes Pisces energy doesn't really want to focus on the details because it's so caught up in just being in the flow of things. If you have Pisces energy, I'm sure you know what I mean. But Virgo energy, and Virgos, I know you're listening too. Virgo energy says, okay, that's great, but I need to make sure that things are still in order, they're in their place. There's a degree of organization and cleanliness that Virgo energy brings. Now, both of these signs are the signs of service, whereas Pisces serves our soul. Virgo serves the physical, right? So the Pisces will hold you and cry with you, and that is the Piscean way of serving and being there for one another. Versus, let's say, the Virgo energy is much more of that Mr. Fix It, right? Let me fix whatever's going on. What's the problem? Hey, guess what? I've got a solution. Now, this full moon eclipse is sort of like a solution, right? But at the same time, it might also create some chaos, some frustration, maybe even some drama. And here's why. The Virgo eclipse is certainly going to be a very chaotic, maybe not so chaotic, but there's certainly a very high energy time. I don't want to always label it chaotic because I don't think that's fair. And I know a lot of us, we get caught up in saying, oh my God, this is going to be the worst month. It's not. It's actually not. This is actually a beautiful opportunity to really harness this cosmic energy, because eclipses are moments of big change in our life, big major life events, children, marriage, divorce, promotions, travel. All of these things can happen when eclipses are taking place. If you've ever heard any of my eclipse stories, you know I have gone through deaths during eclipses. I have gotten engaged during an eclipse. I have seen friends come and go during eclipses. Opportunities I never would have imagined came my way during an eclipse, and that same opportunity door was shut, right? So there's always something happening, usually during an eclipse. And that kind of paints the picture of the eclipse story that we're in. Now, this eclipse story started for us back on September 18th, 2024. So, like I mentioned before, think back in your life to what was going on. Think about what might have started for you around that time and what storyline began. Because this is the second installment of that story, right? We began this in September, and that was the North Node that got activated. That was actually a lunar eclipse in Pisces. And the North Node in Pisces meant that that was actually the beginning of the story. And it was more than likely showing us what we're meant to be doing. So, what happened for you in September that was like an aha moment that said, that's what my soul is supposed to be doing, right? That is my destiny, so to speak. That was the beginning of this story. And this full moon is going to be the second installment that says, okay, if that's what we want to do, if that's the goal and the big dream we've got, and our destiny is going that way, then the Virgo full moon enters in, and it might get a little nitpicky, but it also has a degree of perfectionism that says, let's get our stuff in order then. Let's clear the space. Let's prepare the space for what's to come. Now, this is a south node eclipse. The south node is our comfort zone. The south node is what we need to release. So oftentimes during south nodes, south node eclipses, there's a theme of letting go. Now, like I mentioned, the north node eclipse we had in Pisces in September was really helping us to realize what we're meant to do. This south node eclipse in Virgo is showing us what we need to remove in order for that dream to happen. So consider what's going on for you. And if you're not 100% sure, don't you worry. I got you. The horoscope's coming up here at the end of this video. If you just fast forward, listen for your rising sign, and I promise that will tell you at least what area of life you're more than likely going to experience and maybe already have been experiencing changes in this area of life. So, some things to look out for during this full moon eclipse. Of course, full moons bring enhanced emotion. And right now, during this eclipse, the emotion will probably be more centered on mental anxiety, overthinking, nervousness, feelings of perfectionism, criticism, maybe having to learn how to receive criticism or either give it in a way that's constructive. Because these are Virgo themes, right? Virgo is the sign of cleanliness and order, but Virgo can also be quite critical. It enjoys being that person that is serving the people it cares for, but sometimes with Virgo, we think we're serving by giving advice or pointing out how something could have been done better. And while that is coming from a place of love, it's not always received that way. And so pay attention to situations that come up for you where maybe you have to think about what you say and phrase it and frame it in a way that can be received positively. Mercury will be going retrograde the day after this eclipse, and Mercury rules over the sign of Virgo, which means Mercury is the ruling planet here. This might slow some things down. And during eclipses, one of the biggest pieces of advice I can always give is to surrender. This is not the moment to do your rituals. This is not the time to take out your, moon water and your crystals and get into the bath and journal. It's not that I'm saying don't do those things. You can, but if you're doing them, do them to center yourself and to surrender to what's going on, not necessarily to change or alter what's going on. Because this is the time that I always like to joke around, like eclipses are when we become like the passenger princess of our life. Normally we're in the driver's seat and we have the ability to decide how things play out. But during eclipses, we take a back seat. The universe goes into the front seat, and it becomes more so about us being the observer, being the witness. And so Virgo energy tends to like to control things. But now we have an eclipse that's asking us and kind of almost insisting that we take a back seat. So if you are looking to control everything during this eclipse, during this full moon, if you feel the need to hyper fixate and micromanage, I highly recommend that you instead look to control the controllables and just surrender and witness to whatever else unfolds from there. And when I say control the controllables, I don't mean to balance your checkbook and make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to. What I mean is your thoughts, right? This is Virgo and Mercury energy. We're talking about a very mental sign. Control your thoughts. Virgo energy says, I might overthink. And right now, all we can do is control what we think and how we respond to the situations that are playing out for us. So if things feel chaotic, if they feel crazy right now, you are not alone. Please make sure you're getting your sleep, taking care of your nervous system, as Virgo does rule over the nervous system. This is a time when people might be feeling more anxious, more frustrated, more anxiety. So, yoga, meditation, breath work, anything that calms you down, going for a nice long walk, playing with your pet, spending time with your spouse, whatever it is that calms you down and puts you in that more zen, peaceful place, I highly recommend it, especially if things are happening in life that are making you say, oh my God, what's going on? Just like I said, just surrender and relax. And with that, go ahead and make sure that after you listen to this next part where I go into the Mercury retrograde, you fast forward to your rising sign and listen into where in your life this energy is showing up for you. It will be the most constructive use of your time. So that way you know how to work with this energy, you can be aware of it, and maybe you can make some magic happen out of that. So, following up from this eclipse on Friday, we have Mercury stationing retrograde in the sign of Aries on Saturday, March 15th, the Ides of March. Now, this is already going to be slowing a lot down. We might already be experiencing kind of an eclipse hangover, as a lot of people like to coin it, because so much energy is going on, because so much is swirling around in the air. Situations might be happening that really just turn our world upside down. This retrograde certainly will pause things, right? We're going to pump the brakes for a second, and it's really going to force us to think and reflect on what's been going on, especially in the Aries part of our chart. Now, little basics on Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde is a 3 week long transit. It happens 3 times a year. This is nothing new. We have been experiencing Mercury retrogrades our entire life. Life still goes on. There's nothing to be afraid of. But there are certainly things to be aware of and to be proactive about as we approach and get into a Mercury retrograde. Now, this Mercury retrograde is in Aries. Aries is the sign of the self. Aries is a very passionate, very brave, courageous, sometimes a bit aggressive sign that really knows how to turn up the energy and say how it feels no matter the cost. And I purposefully say that part about saying how it feels because while Mercury is in Aries, Mercury is the sign, or sorry, the planet that controls over our speech. Mercury dictates how we communicate, how we process information, how we think, how we learn. And so when it's in Aries, there is a tendency to reflect on how I've stood up for myself. How have I been able to fight for what matters to me? How have I been able to stand up for who I am, even in the midst of whatever else has been maybe coming at me and trying to tell me to be something I'm not? That's the thing I respect a lot about Aries energy. I'm actually marrying an Aries, so I happen to be a little biased around Aries. But I think the thing that Aries don't get enough credit for is their intuition as well as their ability to stand firm in who they are and have that strong sense of self. If this is something that you struggle with, this Mercury retrograde through Aries and also the Venus retrograde that's also happening right now in Aries, both of these planets together in Aries are more than likely teaching us lessons around self esteem, self respect, even self worth and boundaries, and how to make sure that you're filling your cup first. Are you appropriately and genuinely expressing who you are, right? Are you saying what you feel, even if it's uncomfortable? These might be some questions that you're having to think about during this Mercury retrograde. Now, again, knowing where this is in your chart will, of course, give you way more insight. And I will tell you where this is showing up in your chart in the upcoming horoscope. So don't forget to make sure that you do fast forward and listen into that. It's only like 5 minutes for each sign, it's not going to be super long. But it will be really informative because, again, not only is the eclipse activating our Virgo area of our charts, but both Mercury and Venus are activating the Aries parts of our charts. These are completely different parts of our chart, which means that more than one part of our life is getting lit up by all this cosmic energy and activity. And yes, reflection is the name of the game. All those words, right? Because again, retrogrades are all the things that we have to do in reverse. We review, we reflect, we reassess, we rebuild. There's so many things that we go back on during a retrograde. And so one thing I will say about this Mercury retrograde, of course, the basics are miscommunication can happen, right? We might have to go back on our word, or maybe rephrase what we said because it just didn't come out right. This is typical. If you are looking to have any sort of important meetings, book any sort of appointments, travel, anything like that, it's not to say that you can't do it. Please, by all means, live your life, but be aware that if you are looking to, have an important conversation or go on a trip, get that travel insurance. Make sure that you think ahead of time about what you want to say during this conversation. Anything that involves booking of appointments, meetings, scheduling, even technology can get a little wacky during the retrograde. So back up your technology. Make sure your iCloud's all up to date. I don't know, iCloud always, there's always something up that you need to update with iCloud, you guys. I already know you know. So make sure it's good to go. Your laptop's backed up, right? If you have to make any major purchases, okay, if you're going to have to make major purchases, it's not to say don't do it, but just read the fine print, right? If you're going to sign a contract and you have no choice, I get it. Listen, I just booked some travel excursions and all this stuff for, a couple months from now when I'm getting married, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it's Venus retrograde, it's Mercury retrograde. What am I doing? But this is why we are aware of these things and we're proactive about that, right? I took steps and measures to make sure that I did what I needed to do before Mercury went retrograde, yes. But also, even with the Venus retrograde, we just have to make sure that we're prepared. There's nothing that you can't do during these times. It's just that having that second layer of awareness will more than likely get you through any sticky situations. And so while Mercury is retrograde, it will be basically holding hands with Venus. Both Mercury and Venus are going to be moving through Aries all of March. By the end of March, they're actually going to both enter back into Pisces, which is a whole nother conversation. And that's going to be later on in the month. I will, of course, upload a video about that. But while these two planets are in Aries, this is going to be a time when we're doing a lot of reflection and a lot, maybe even of conversations that haven't been had but need to be had. The themes are more than likely going to be regarding relationships, simply because of the fact that Venus is involved. I will also say creativity and money. I don't want to leave those two topics out because Venus does equally rule over those areas as well. So anything related to creativity, art, feminine energy, love, relationships, money, those are all Venus things. And Mercury, of course, is all the mental stuff. Mercury is also dealing with numbers, and Venus is money. So, yes, the two definitely go hand in hand. Now, again, during this time, we might have to revisit a conversation, find closure with an old lover. We might have to maybe have a conversation with a friend or maybe reconnect with an old friend that we haven't seen in a long time. We might have money owed to us that finally hits our bank account. Hallelujah. Yes, that can happen during a Venus retrograde, especially when Mercury is activated. And depending on how that looks in your chart, there's a huge potential that money is coming your way, especially if you were supposed to get it and you didn't get it. You might be thinking on re-listening to, I don't know, old music that you used to listen to. Again, we're looking in the rear view mirror of our relationships, of our relationship with art and beauty. And so we might be rewatching old movies we loved as a child, or listening to songs that you and your partner, really used to listen and dance to at the beginning of your relationship. Actually, I think Snow White is coming out in March. I think it's March 21st, which I find so ironic because, of course, Snow White is a very feminine presence, it's a princess, and it's an old movie that's being, what's the word? I rebrought, no, not rebrought, remade. There it is, remade in this exact time period that Venus is retrograde. And fun fact: the last time we had a Venus retrograde was the summer of 2023. And if you remember, the Barbie movie came out. And so, of course, and I actually found out from an astrologer's podcast during that time that there were astrologers on staff of the Barbie movie. And so they actually did release the Barbie movie during that time on purpose. And so I'm wondering if some astrologers are on the staff for Snow White and they picked March 21st, which is also the equinox, the beginning of the, astrological new year, in the midst of eclipse season. And we've got two retrogrades that are basically, bringing us like a blast from the past. And of course, this very Venus Venusian princess movie gets remade during this time. Again, the astrology is so beautiful to witness. So, all of that to say, you guys, Mercury retrograde, nothing to fear, but it certainly will add on to the cosmic potency of March. Knowing where this is showing up in your chart is crucial. So I definitely encourage you to go ahead and at this point, fast forward. If you don't know your rising sign, listen in for your sun sign. That will still give you some accurate information. Can't promise the accuracy as much, but it is something to listen to. I definitely recommend, if you know your rising sign, please go ahead and listen for your rising sign, as that will give you the most accurate interpretation of this lunar eclipse in Virgo, as well as the Mercury retrograde in Aries. And just a friendly reminder, if you are enjoying this information and you're getting value, but you don't know enough about your chart and you want to go deeper, my link below will take you to my booking link, and you will be able to book a birth chart reading with me if you're interested and you want to dive deeper into your specific energetic blueprint, the cosmic coding that makes you who you are. That link is below. Full birth chart reading, you get a PDF that I write up for you. Everything is yours to keep. Even the Zoom is recorded. This is going to be your most in-depth understanding of your birth chart. That is below. And if you're a Pisces, I already said this before, but Pisces, you do get 50% off of birth chart readings for this time while the sun is in Pisces, as well as 50% off of solar return readings if you are interested in knowing what you can expect for this year that you're experiencing between now and 2026. So If that's something that is of interest to you, or you would like to buy one of those for a friend, I do offer gift certificates. Link is below so you can schedule that. And I look forward to chatting with you over Zoom. Aries and Aries Rising. Aries, the full moon eclipse in Virgo is activating your sixth house. Now, the sixth house is the house of your health, how you maintain your physical body, the work you do on a daily basis, the routines that you have. It is even the service that you provide and even the coworkers that you might see on a daily basis. Now, all of that to say, it looks like there might be some major themes of health and how to take care of not only your physical health, but your spiritual and mental health. The eclipse that began for you back in September activated your 12th house, which has a lot to do with your mental and spiritual health. And now this eclipse is activating your sixth house, which says that we need to make sure that we still take care of our physical body in order to still make sure that we're caring for our spiritual essence and what we need on an internal level. So, Aries, think to what's been going on for you. And if you've been properly taking care of yourself, shout out to you. This eclipse might be a real steady awakening of what you have done for yourself physically and all of the benefits that your body's experiencing. But at the same time, Aries, if you know that there's something that needs to change, if there's a health issue that keeps maybe coming back up and you know it needs to be handled and you just haven't done so, maybe you need to schedule that appointment with a doctor or a chiropractor. Maybe you just need to get into the gym and get a workout routine going. Or maybe it has something to do with your diet, your health, the water you drink, whatever that is, Aries rising. Aries rising, you all are experiencing a major shift when it comes to your health. This might also mean a major shift in your daily responsibilities. This could look like the routines you have on a daily basis start to change. Maybe you add in walking or working out, or maybe you're starting to do weekly facials or beauty treatments, or again, chiropractic or acupuncture. Again, all of these fall under the sixth house. And this full moon in Virgo will more than likely shine a light on how you've been caring for your body, how you've been taking care of your physical being. If this vessel is happy and it is thriving, you will see that during this eclipse and you will feel the result of that. Maybe you'll even be given opportunities to help others do the same thing. Virgo is the sign of service. At the same time, Aries, use this eclipse if you've been needing a reset for your physical body. Use this eclipse. Go join that gym. Make sure that you're eating the right foods. Make sure that you're taking care of your skin and your hair. And again, you're, overall feeling like you are operating from a place of health. This is crucial during this Virgo full moon. Virgo is the sign of health, and therefore this might really feel like a very potent health oriented time for you. Now, Aries, the Mercury retrograde is going through your first house. It is there. Venus is there, which means you might be feeling very Venusian, very beautiful. Please, Aries risings, if you haven't already, get behind the camera, take some selfies. You won't regret it. Now, during this time with Mercury retrograde, there might be a lot of reflection on how you show up in relationships, but also how you establish a sense of self in those relationships. Because that is the function that you have come into this lifetime with, Aries. You are meant to make sure that you alone are good. That is your function, to serve yourself. It's not to say that you can't be there for others, but you have to make sure that there is still a focus on you. And this retrograde might be bringing up situations that ask you to look at that. Seriously, look at that. Are you tending to your needs? Are you making sure that the way that you show up, the way that you dress, how you appear to people, the energy you bring when you first meet somebody, is this honest? Is this authentic for who you are? Does it feel good? Or is there something that needs to be reassessed and reworked? This is the retrograde time. Do all of that work. You almost might feel like you're under construction during this retrograde, and that's okay. Aries, by the time we end March and we enter into April, which might be some of your birthdays if you also have your sun in Aries. This is going to be when you really can feel the culmination of this Aries energy before it moves into Pisces. So utilize March is what my point is, and let the Mercury retrograde in your first house be a reminder of all the things that you would like to improve or add or even remove from how you are, how you express who you are, and overall just the energy and aura that you present to people when you first show up. Taurus and Taurus risings. Taurus, this full moon eclipse in Virgo is activating your fifth house. Now, the fifth house deals with children, it deals with dating and romance, and as well as all things creative. So, this can look like projects, hobbies, things like that. Now, Taurus, this full moon is in your fifth house of children. So, we're going to start with that. this is a very fertile time for you. Okay, now again, there's a lot of people that listen to this. Some are male, some are female, some want children, some don't. But I will say this: fertility, children, inner child work, these are going to be themes that I would more than likely say you will be experiencing during this full moon. That is one theme. That is one area of life that definitely is getting triggered by this full moon. Now, again, it's a full moon. The moon is also a very, you could say, like motherly type of energy, right? That's what the moon represents. And so full moons actually also represent a woman's pregnant belly. So that's why the moon in the fifth house of children is very fertile. But when we have an eclipse, eclipses can bring major beginnings and major endings. So if you are a woman listening to this, or if you're, with a woman and you want to get pregnant and this is your goal, utilize this full moon, Taurus rising. I have to say, this is a very fertile time. But moving on just from that, inner child work, working with your children, anything going on with the kids that you might have in your life already, or if they're yours, or any kids that you might work with, or kids in your family, things like that. You might have some things going on with these children in your life, or with themes relating to children. And this might be sort of like a new chapter starting when it comes to kids. And this might be something really positive where you might have more responsibilities that you have to attend to with your child, or something shifts and now you're spending more or less time with children, or you might even have opportunities to heal your inner child, Taurus, during this time. So a lot of children themes during this full moon eclipse. Also, dating and romance. Let's get into that. This fifth house also does deal with all things related to dating and romance. There is other houses like the seventh house that deals with such as marriage. But in the fifth house, it's much more casual. Right? Fifth house matters are the dating part of our relationship before it gets serious. It's the honeymoon phase. It's the, goo goo gaga, I just fell in love. Oh my God, let's go on our first date. Or maybe our 10th. But it's early, or maybe it's just really very romantic. It might be late into the relationship, it might be years, but there's a romance quality here to the fifth house. And so, how does romance look for you, Taurus? You're a Venus ruled sign. How has romance been in your life? Has it been thriving? And this might be a continuation of that, that story of your romantic life really thriving ever since September. Again, the beginning of this eclipse series started September 18th. This is only the second installment. We've got a couple more, I think it looks like 7 more of these eclipses in Pisces Virgo before they complete in 2027. So this is a story that you're going to be seeing play out for a little bit. So when it comes to your dating life, maybe you just started dating somebody new, or you've decided that you want to change how you go about dating. Whatever that is for you, Taurus, this eclipse will more than likely bring that to the surface. You might feel a lot of emotions regarding dating and romance and children and creativity. And this might be your opportunity to maybe start something new or end something that needs to be ended. And I want to emphasize the ending because, again, this is the South Node. The South Node does deal with what we need to let go of. And so, with the South Node being in your fifth house, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to let go of the person you're dating, but there might be some habits, some patterns, some ways that you behave when it comes to dating, relationships, parenting that could use to be released. Something might not be serving you, might not be creating the space required for you to really live into whatever that dream is. And that dream might have been established back in September. And all of a sudden, this eclipse might be helping you to clear out whatever needs to be cleared out so we can realize that dream even more. That could be the person that you're dating. That could be a situation involving that. That could just simply be something involving how you're showing up in your dating life. Whatever that is, Taurus, there is something that might need to be let go of in order for change to come about in this area of your life. Now, one other thing we are going to look at is, of course, that Mercury retrograde in Aries. Now, this is in your 12th house. And so the name of the game, Taurus, when it comes to any type of retrograde in your 12th house of isolation is to retreat. And I don't say that in a way of like, being scared and like, retreating because you're afraid. What I mean is it is okay to go and isolate yourself for a little bit and really just be on your own and sit with your own thoughts. Mercury is the planet of our thoughts and our thinking and how we process information. So during this retrograde, which begins on March 15th, it doesn't end until April 7th. Use this time to go inward, to meditate, to reflect, to journal. I really recommend that. Get a dream journal. The 12th house deals with your dreams. Pay attention to your dreams, Taurus. What information is coming up for you that you need to listen to? What do you need to know about who you are? And this is a very solo focused time because the 12th house is all about the inner subconscious self. Nobody else is around here, right? This is the mental health, the spiritual health, the dreams, all the stuff that is you and you alone. Go and be with your inner self during this retrograde and utilize this time to get seriously deep with what it is that your soul needs. Allow yourself to fill your cup based on that information and watch how everything else in your life unfolds even better during this time. Now, Venus is also retrograde in Aries in your 12th house, Taurus. Venus is your ruling planet, which can indicate that anything relationship wise, especially as we have this eclipse activating your house of relationships, romance, all that kind of stuff, relationships with yourself, kids, person you're dating, all of that's getting activated. And now you've also got Venus retrograding in your 12th house. So please make sure that you're taking time to be on your own and fill your cup so that way you can even give to those people that you're in a relationship with. You might be feeling the need to sort of kind of section yourself off and be on your own. And that is okay, Taurus. Use this time. Make sure you still communicate what's going on so your spouse or your partner doesn't think that you just ran off on them. Communicate, but then take that necessary time to be on your own, to work through whatever you need to work through. So that way, when you emerge from this retrograde, you emerge a more upgraded and clear version of who you are and how you can better show up for yourself and for the other people in your life. Gemini and Gemini Rising. Geminis, this full moon eclipse is showing up in your fourth house. This is the fourth house of your home, your family, your origins, your ancestry. This is the roots of your charts, Gemini. Now, this full moon eclipse in Virgo is certainly going to bring up a lot of stuff as it relates to the home front. This might relate to your family, your parents, especially your mom or whatever motherly figure raised you. This might also relate to the house that you currently live in, your living situation, the people that you currently live with, let's say roommates or your spouse. But mainly, this is your home, whatever is considered home for you, right? Whatever gets put into that category of home, that's right now on the chopping block during this full moon eclipse. Now, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, eclipses are times of big change, big, major beginnings of something new, as well as endings of things that need to be released and let go of. And this is the eclipse that's activating the South Node in Virgo, which does tell us that when it comes to your home and family, Geminis, there might be something that you're releasing during this eclipse. This could be a pattern that relates to your parents. This might be something where you have a conversation, Mercury retrograde. You might be having conversations with your family, your home, people that you live with that are maybe going back over old situations that perhaps maybe never fully had closure. That's what retrogrades often do. And during this time with a full moon in your fourth house, it's not unlikely that conversations with family members, even relating to situations going back to childhood, right? All of that might emerge during this time. So that's certainly one thing that might show up for you all Geminis. So be aware of that. Know that especially while Mercury is retrograding through Aries, no less, that our words can be a bit sharp. So be sure that you are thinking before you speak, especially in conversation, especially if it's an emotional one, because it's a full moon with your family. Now, other things with the fourth house, this can certainly indicate a change in your living situation. So, Geminis, think back to what was going on for you in September, because again, like I'd said before, September began this story. We started this story at the end of September, right? September 18th, on or around that date, you might have begun something, some new idea, some new chapter of your life, especially as it relates to your home and your family. Now, this is the second installment of that story. And so something might have to be let go of during this time in order for you to continue to realize that dream. That story is playing out exactly as it should. And sometimes during the story, something has to happen, something has to give and change and maybe be taken out in order for the rest to unfold. And so, again, when it comes to your living situation, Geminis, you might be experiencing a change here. You might be moving. You might be redecorating. You might be renovating. You might be inviting new roommates in, or because it's the South Node, you might be saying sayonara to somebody that you've been living with, or maybe a community that you've been living around. Again, it could be anything involving your home life. I'll let you fill in the blank. Know that big changes are on the horizon and they have only just begun, right? This eclipse series is going to last until 2027. We've got a couple more, I want to say like 7 more eclipses in the signs of Pisces and Virgo. Now, during this time, while all these eclipses are still activating your fourth house, they will also be activating your 10th house, Geminis, which means that not only have you been having a lot of emphasis and focus on your home life, but I would also bet that you've also had a lot of energy and focus on your career life. This eclipse with the sun and all the other planets in Pisces right now in your 10th house of career, you might be having a lot going on. You might be experiencing a job change, a promotion, a job loss. You might be starting a new job. You might be transitioning in some way, shape, or form when it comes to your public image. Now, during this eclipse, all of that energy that's been so about your career, it comes down into the home front. And all of a sudden, now the focus is on what's been going on at home, Geminis. So if you've been neglecting the family because all the things at work have been happening, you're going to have to tap back in. There's something that's going to more than likely come up for you, Geminis, that will insist, demand that you look at what's going on in your home life and your family life and address what's happening there. Now, let's talk about the Mercury retrograde, as Mercury is your ruling planet. And so, Geminis, during this retrograde, you might be experiencing a lot of energy. And of course, having a Virgo full moon also ruled by Mercury, this is like double dose of heavy and potentially potent cosmic energy. Now, with the Mercury retrograde in Aries, this is activating your 11th house of your friendships, your network, the community that you're a part of. And so retrogrades oftentimes have us reflecting on our position in these spaces, on how we show up and how we respond to the people that are around us in these areas of our life. And so think, Geminis, about what team you're on, what organization are you a part of, your friend group, the social circle that you identify with. What's been going on there? Very simple. Have there been changes that you know need to be made and you just haven't fully gotten yourself to do that? This retrograde might be that like last straw, or it might be that aha moment, or it might be that light bulb that says, okay, something's got to give. Maybe this person doesn't belong in my life anymore. Maybe a friend enters into your life, an old friend perhaps. I say this also because Venus is also retrograde, right? Venus, the planet of love and relationships and even friendship, is also retrograding through your house of friendships and groups and organizations. And so any people that you might have dated in your past, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe friends that turned into lovers that went back to being friends. Yeah, that person. Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised if they jump back into your DMs. You might have anybody that you were friends with in the past that you stopped talking to. Maybe there was never any conversation and that closure never happened. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you get that phone call or that text message from them. Anything involving somebody in your past that you know things were not fully ended, right? There was not that pretty bow on that relationship. It's more than likely that conversation needs to be had, and it will be more than likely had during the month of March. And again, this is good. This is positive because it's letting us release, again, that South Node, release what we do not need and welcome back in maybe what we do need. Because the 11th house is also the house of our hopes and dreams. And maybe these people that are coming back into our life during this retrograde are here for a greater reason. And they're here to help and remind us of what we are supposed to be doing, and they might just be that resource that's going to help us get there. So, Geminis, pay attention to what's going on when it comes to your home life, your family life, and your friendships. Cancer and Cancer Rising. Cancers, this full moon eclipse in Virgo is showing up in your third house. Now, the third house is the house of communication. It also is the house of your siblings, your neighborhood, and your local community. This house deals with the things that we're learning, the basics of things that we need to know, and it's also how we express our ideas to the world. Now, Cancers, this full moon is a continuation from what started for you back in September. So I would encourage you to think about what was happening for you in September. Because this was the time when your ninth house was activated, the ninth and the third house also both deal with travel as well as big and small ideas. So, what was happening for you? What began for you maybe during that time where you started to realize what you were meant to do? maybe what you were meant to study, what you were meant to learn, maybe even topics that you know that you'd be great at teaching. Your local community might have expanded. You might have booked some trips on to places that you've never been to, and maybe that's what's going to expand your mind, right? These are all the things, Cancers, that could have began for you back in September. And this is the second installment of that storyline that says, hey, okay, if I know I want to learn and grow and expand my mind and really, take up this new space in the world, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to readjust? And perhaps emotionally speaking, this full moon in Virgo will have us really feeling into what we need to know, as well as who we need to know in order to reach our destiny, which is that North Node. And so this is the third house of our local community. Pay attention to the places that you visit on a day-to-day basis, right? The coffee shop that you visit, the barista who serves you your drink in the morning, the gas station attendant, the person at the bank, whatever it is. These are all third house topics and people. They might play a really pivotal role for you during this time, especially as we are in this eclipse season. You might have some major situations going on with your neighbors, with your neighborhood, with the community that you associate with, your local community. You also might have something going on with your siblings. And Cancers, of course, you're very focused on home and family. For better or for worse, you are definitely attuned to the needs of your loved ones and your family. Your siblings might come up during this time, and there might be some situations unfolding with siblings that could be difficult or really could be beautiful. Whatever that is for you, these eclipses often bring about major change. So perhaps you change something in terms of how you communicate with your sibling, maybe establishing some more boundaries or being more specific and clear and practical, Virgo energy, about how you can better show up in that relationship with your siblings. This, again, could also be the same with your neighbors. This could look like new ways of interacting with your neighbors, maybe even new places that you begin to visit within your local neighborhood. All of these things could show up for you during this eclipse. And I would really encourage you, Cancers, to take note of how these people, how these ideas and situations, how they make you feel. You are a very emotional sign as it is, and having the moon as your ruling planet means that eclipses are going to affect you in a deeper way, in a more visceral way than honestly any other rising sign. And that's just the card, or I should say, the hand that you were dealt. So play your cards right. Listen to your intuition. Feel into what feels right to say and to speak. Virgo energy tends to be a bit critical, a bit nitpicky. You might be a perfectionist in how you express your thoughts and ideas. This eclipse might be a reminder, a wake up call that you don't have to be perfect to say how you feel, right? Now, on top of that, let's look at Mercury, because Mercury is the planet of our communication, and Mercury going retrograde in your 10th house means that you're going to be revisiting things as it relates to your career. The 10th house deals with your career and your public image. This is your overall reputation in the world and the labels that you hold. So, this could look like you going back over some ways of doing things in your career. Maybe you're going to resubmit a resume to a job that you really wanted and you didn't get it before, and now you're deciding, I'm going to go out for that again. Or deciding that you want to change up how you are with your boss. Or maybe even during this retrograde you say, I don't even want to work this job, I want to do something else. This is the time, Cancers, that while not only Mercury but also Venus are both retrograde through your 10th house of career, you might be having a lot of reflections around how you show up in the world. And if there's a change that needs to be made, this might be the energy where you start to feel that. I don't necessarily say to jump in and change things, because let's be honest, retrogrades and eclipses, they're chaotic enough without adding in our own, us looking to do something and change something. As I always say, eclipses are times of surrender, but also retrogrades are times of reflection. So while we surrender and we reflect, utilize this time to really get clear on what it is that you want to do career wise and how you want to express your ideas to the world. These two things working in harmony during this eclipse and over this weekend, as we've got Mercury going retrograde, along with Venus being already retrograde, and now this eclipse, there's so much energy that's focusing you on how you speak, how you show up, and ultimately who you are with the people in your local environment, as well as who you are to the world and how you show up and what you're known for in terms of your general reputation and the perch that you have in this world. Leo and Leo rising. Leos, this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo is activating your second house. The second house deals with earned income, all of the resources, namely money that we receive. It also does rule over our sense of self worth and self esteem. Now, this eclipse for you is pretty self explanatory. There is some financial situation and story that has been starting and developing for you over the last few months. Think back, Leos, to what happened for you back in September. Whatever was going on for you, specifically in terms of finances. This might be finances in terms of the money that you make, but it also could be finances that you received from another person, from your spouse, anything like that, credit cards, loans, inheritances. September was when this initial eclipse began for you in the eighth house, in your eighth house of income that comes from other people. Now, that began the storyline. That was the initial catalyst for this eclipse series. And this is the second installment, Leos, where now the energy and the focus is on you and your contribution and the money that you make. And how do you feel about the money you make? And I really want to land on that for a second, Leos. How do you feel? What is your sense of self worth and self esteem as it relates to your bank account, as it relates to the money that you have in your life and at your disposal? You might see that during this eclipse, situations come up for you that have you questioning what you're worth. And we don't just mean financially, but yes, we do. What are you worth, right? What are you worth on a personal level? What are you worth in terms of what you should be getting paid? This full moon, Leos, you might be getting more money coming in. You might be having new opportunities, new income sources walking into your life. You also might have, income that you, or I should say, income streams that you've been having that suddenly leave your life. And again, this is the South Node in Virgo. And so, Leos, I would say that there might be something financially that you have to let go of. This can be an income stream that maybe is just it's expired, right? It's done its time. You don't need it anymore. Maybe it's not enough, or maybe it's not in alignment with your values. That could be something. This also might be the time where you have to release any paradigms, any mindset and fear, or just ways of thinking as it relates to finances. A lot of us are brought up with certain ways of thinking about money. This might be the catalyst of change, so to speak, for you all, Leos, that changes and forces you to shift your thinking and shift the way that you see your money. And this could be a really good thing, right? This might be the time when you realize that nothing's going to go back to how it was. And I say that because honestly, that's what eclipses often bring. What I find that happens oftentimes with eclipses is that after they come and go, nothing is usually exactly how it was before. And that's usually an okay thing, right? Usually there's some degree of upgrade that happens with eclipses, even though that initially they could feel chaotic, like you don't know what's going on. It's typically for your best interest to where something might enter or leave your life, and that's designed for you to be, realizing what it is that you're meant to be realizing during this 18-month cycle that the nodes of destiny and karma are activating these parts of your chart. And so, Leos, this is your financial era, right? This is the time when both your second house of earned income and your eighth house of other people's money are getting activated. And this is where you really have to look at, okay, do I enjoy the way I make money? Does it feel authentic for me? Am I proud? Leos, we're very proud people. Do we want to make sure that the money we're earning is suited for our sense of our self, our ego, our pride? Do we feel proud of what we earn and what we make? Or is there something that's just not aligning? And if that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised, Leos, if this full moon it is the catalyst and the change where something gives, something changes, and you feel a shift when it comes to your finances. Now let's talk about the Mercury retrograde in Aries, as this is in your ninth house. And the ninth house is the house of your higher education, also long distance travel, spirituality, religion, even philosophy and astrology falls into the ninth house. While Mercury and Venus are both retrograding through this part of your chart, you might be going back over old topics of study, maybe going into old textbooks from courses that you took, college, certification programs, anything like that that you were into years ago, you might be revisiting during this time. You also might be experiencing a reflection over the basic beliefs that you hold of this world, right? Your philosophy of life. What religious beliefs do you ascribe to? Are you religious at all? What are your thoughts on God? How do you feel about religion? What about your thoughts on spirituality? You're obviously listening to this video right now. Is astrology something that really calls to you and you feel like maybe you want to go back and learn more about astrology or numerology or something related to that spiritual science? These might be topics, Leos, that come up for you during this time that you are reflecting on and going back over. Now, the ninth house also rules over long distance travel and any sort of foreign cultures or even foreign people, but mainly places and people that are of a foreign culture that we've probably visited in the past. They're going to also be coming up during this time. You might be going and actually visiting some place that you used to go to as you were a child or in your younger years and you haven't been in a long time. This retrograde might be that time for you. You might be reconnecting with old professors, old scholars, old, people that you were connected to, let's say like in the church, if you're into the church, old pastors or priests, things like that. You might be connecting with people that you met while you were away on a trip. Maybe you were, in another country and you made some friends, and all of a sudden they message you during this time and say, "Hey, I'll be in the States." These are things that could happen, Leos, during this time. Now, while we have a retrograde, especially moving through a house of travel, and retrogrades are notorious for slowing down travel, I do want to emphasize that if you are looking to go on a trip or book any travel plans, just do so with an added degree of caution. This is not something to avoid, and I don't want to put any fear in anybody because truly you don't need to worry. I'll give myself as an example because I'm also a Leo rising, and I just booked, or I should say, myself and my fiance, we just booked a international trip. Now it's not going to be during the retrograde. Of course, it's going to be after we get married, which is in April. But I purposely did make sure that I booked the trip before Mercury goes retrograde. However, there's going to be some things that I have to still do, payments I need to make, things like that, that we have to handle during the retrograde. Are we going to be afraid? Am I, especially with my ninth house getting activated, am I going to be afraid and say, I can't sign that or I can't pay that? No, 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 no. But I'm going to read the fine print. I'm going to buy the travel insurance. I'm going to make sure that I double check and triple check things before taking action. Aries energy can be very impulsive. So while Mercury and Venus are retrograding through Aries, we might be having to check our impulses. And this could be us realizing that, hey, it's time to slow it down and really go back and rethink and reprocess something. This could be a payment or this could be just a thought process, whatever that is. You might have to reprocess some stuff. So just be aware. It's nothing to fear, but it is something to be aware of that this could happen. And so during this time, especially as the ninth house is so focused on our perspective of the world and the way that we see things in a global sense, Leos, you might be really reflecting on your global perspective and how you view the world and how you see things, and if they are authentic to you, or if maybe there needs to be some reframing in the ways that you view society, the world, and your ultimate higher education and philosophy of life. Virgo and Virgo rising. Virgos, the spotlight is on you. This full moon eclipse in Virgo is, of course, going to be activating your first house, which is all about who you are and how you appear to the world. A lot of people like to say that the first house is sort of like the mask that you wear. And yeah, in many ways, that is true, right? Because I like to think about the first house like our aura, the energy that we first express when we meet somebody, as well as our physical constitution, how we appear, how we dress. Even our physical health can also be affected by the first house. And so, having a full moon eclipse in your first house, Virgos, number one, make sure you're taking care of your physical body. I want to emphasize that because this is something that could happen during eclipses. Eclipses can bring unexpected situations, and we don't want that when it comes to our physical body, unless it's something good, of course. But again, we just want to make sure that we're eating right, that we're taking care of ourselves, going for walks and exercising. Virgo rules over the nervous system. And so oftentimes the Virgo energy, and you guys, I probably don't need to tell you this, but anxiety and nervousness can really creep up on you. As we approach a full moon, when the emotions are heightened and it's an eclipse, so things are getting spooky, you might be feeling a little on edge, right? Please make sure that you are relaxing, going for your walk, take a bath, do some yoga, do some breath work. Okay, my Virgos listening, I know that it can be very easy to get very wrapped up in our mind and start going over and over and over with thinking and thoughts, and we could spiral. We really could. We want to make sure that we are staying level headed during this otherwise potentially a little bit more chaotic time. Okay, so that's the first thing I really want to emphasize. Now, Virgos, the other part about this is I want you to go back to September and I want you to think about what was going on for you in September. More than likely, September began something in terms of how you are in relationships, because that was when the Pisces eclipse was activating your seventh house of marriage. And so during September, something might have shifted for you in terms of you and how you are with the other people in your life, those one to one partnerships. What's been going on there, Virgo rising? Have you experienced a recent marriage? Have you gotten divorced? Has there been a breakup, or maybe you've moved in with a long term partner? These are all examples that could have happened for you since September. Now, as we approach this Virgo full moon in your first house, the focus and the energy goes from being all about that relationship in your life that's been taking up center stage to like, hey, wait, but am I good? Do I need to refocus on myself? Yeah, maybe. Utilize this full moon. This is more than likely going to elicit some changes within yourself. Make sure these changes are positive and that they are what you and you alone desire. I'm not necessarily advocating for selfishness here because, again, Virgo Pisces eclipses, you are having to still work with that seventh house. So, Virgos, yes, that person in your life, that your spouse, your partner, your business partner, could even be your best friend. That person is still very relevant in the story that started for us back in September. And now, during this full moon eclipse in Virgo on the 14th, this is the second installment of that story. But now the focus is more so about you. You are the main character in this chapter of the story, Virgo. So, what do you need to do to make sure that you are getting all of your needs met? And that might look like taking care of your physical body, your emotional body. That might look like you just simply changing up how you come off to the world, maybe your style, maybe your hair. I want to emphasize that this might not be the best time to chop off all your hair and to dye it a crazy color, but I'm also not going to tell you not to do it. I just want to emphasize to sit with any decision that you decide to make, especially with Mercury and Venus both being retrograde, before you just jump in and make any bold moves. Otherwise, Virgo, please know that you really are on you're really in the hot seat between now and 2027. And this is not a bad thing. In fact, your life can radically shift over these next 18 months. You might have already started to feel an inkling of that back in September, but my goodness, Virgos, the beginning has started and we are just at the precipice, right? We are literally only in the second installment of something that's going to happen for the next year and some change. So really take note of who you are today. Who are you now, and who do you intend to be by the time these eclipses wrap up in your first and seventh house? How do you intend to be with yourself, and how do you intend to allow that person that you're creating and working on? Essentially, you're like under construction right now, Virgos, but at some point in time, you will be fully built. And I want to make sure that the version that you build for yourself is also the version that your partner, your spouse, that other person in your life can also benefit from, right? Because that's the other side of this coin, is that there is another person here to consider. But I want to make sure that during this full moon, the focus is mainly on you. Now, Mercury is your ruling planet, right? Being a Virgo rising. So Mercury retrograde is going to affect you guys more than most other signs. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But if we look at where this Mercury retrograde is for you, Virgos, this Mercury retrograde is showing up in your eighth house. Now, the eighth house is all about vulnerability and things that we don't often share with people, right? The eighth house deals with the money that we get from other people. So the eighth house can be like your spouse's income, maybe an ex partner, like, somebody that you divorced, that can be a definite eighth house thing. This can also be the money that you get from credit cards, loans, taxes, inheritances. The eighth house also does rule over sex. And so topics related to sexuality, you might be reflecting and revisiting these things, reflecting over the income that you receive from somebody else or from something, some other entity, such as, again, like, maybe your credit card bills or any money owed to you, any old debts. Retrogrades oftentimes through our eighth house bring up old debts, and we have to maybe set up a payment plan, especially with Mercury retrograde, all about the numbers here. So again, eighth house can be a very deep house where, with Mercury going retrograde here and Venus also retrograde here, you might be really reflecting on your relationship with money, your relationship with sex, vulnerability, intimacy, how you show up in situations where you have to be vulnerable and to be seen by somebody in a way that is so raw and so scary at times that you still have to persevere through that. Who are you when you persevere through that? Do you like the version of yourself that comes up when you feel like you're in a vulnerable situation? These are the questions that you might be asking and reflecting on. And yeah, you might have some situations, Virgos, that might come up that force you to look at your response to sexual matters, to money that you share with another person, money that you owe, right? These are all things that you might have to do some deep shadow work around, and retrogrades are a great opportunity to really reflect and look at the things that you don't necessarily need to tell anybody, but you know it's there, right? The eighth house often does deal with our deeper psyches, our psychological ways of being that we don't even tend to tap into. Yeah, retrogrades can oftentimes bring that to the surface. So do the work, Virgo rising, during this time. As I know, there's a lot happening for you with with the eclipses and the retrogrades. You've got a lot on your plate, but know that you also have a huge, probably bigger than most any other sign. You have a huge opportunity to work with this cosmic energy and make massive changes in your life that by the time 2027 rolls around, you might be looking around like, who am I? And wow, have things changed, but hopefully for the better, right? So that's really what's on the menu for you all. And I really hope that this full moon activates a lot for you guys that helps you to get to that next level of expansion and elevation that I know your story is leading you towards. Libra and Libra rising. Libras, this full moon eclipse in Virgo is activating your 12th house. Now, the 12th house does deal with all things hidden and slightly repressed from the outside world. Now, this is actually a really nice opportunity for you all Libras because the 12th house does deal with our subconscious, right? It deals with our dream state and our spiritual work, all of the things that happen really behind the scenes. This is the house that also does rule over things like hospitals and jails and psych wards and all those things that it might sound scary, but really honestly are just the areas of our society that are not necessarily plugged in with mainstream. And so when you think of the 12th house, think about going on a long distance retreat. Like you're going away, your phone is not going to work, you're not going to have any sort of internet connection. You are out there. Maybe you're in the jungle or on a beach or on a mountaintop, and you are completely in your own space, just really sitting in your energy and getting close to yourself in a way that might not ever happen if you don't go and be on your own. Libras, I know hearing to be on your own might be kind of counterintuitive because you are the sign most closely focused on relationships. And that's a great thing. That's a great quality. Now, during this eclipse, you might be finally feeling a sense of relief just because the eclipses are no longer in your first house, right? You just got out of that. As we are finishing up the Aries Libra eclipses, we do have one more getting activated at the end of March, which definitely make sure you listen in for that for the next video. But in general, Libras, you guys are finally kind of off the chopping block. And so this is actually a really welcome time where this eclipse is in your 12th house of isolation. It's kind of like a break where you're able to just go and hang out on your own and just take a break from all of the added, energy that was really getting active for you over the last couple of years. Ever since 2023, October specifically 2023, when we first had that Libra eclipse, you might have had some major life changes going on. And finally, you might be feeling like over the last couple months, especially since January, they started to kind of even out and maybe things have been, feeling a little less chaotic. And so this is really positive because now you have an opportunity to work with this lunar eclipse in Virgo in your 12th house where nobody's watching you. You're no longer in the spotlight. And you can just do the inner work that you need to do, that your soul requires. And you don't have to be seen or witnessed by anybody. You don't have to invite anybody into that space. You can be completely on your own. And Virgo energy is so great with looking at the details of things that you can sit for a while, Libras, and really analyze yourself, really sit with your dreams. Journaling is a great activity for you all during this time. And sit with your thoughts, meditate, do some breath work, attend a yoga class and don't talk to a single soul. Just show up and be in your zone, right? Whatever it is for you that takes you out of your normal day to day life and allows you to tap in and almost recharge your soul's battery. That's what this full moon in Virgo is more than likely activating for you. With all the Pisces planets in your sixth house, Libras, you might have been experiencing a lot of energy and focus around your physical health, around how do you take care of your body and things like that. This is that shift that says, okay, maybe back in September, which is when this storyline began for you, maybe back then you began to really take control of your health. Perhaps you started a new workout routine or a diet, or you changed up, the way that you care for your skin, your nails, your hair, whatever it is, Libras, there's maybe something that you externally were making sure you were taking care of ever since September. The focus is now to add on to that. I don't want to take that away because we're going to have more Pisces eclipses for you, and that sixth house is going to be activated. So, yeah, taking care of your physical body, that is a major theme, right? Your health, your body, the work and service that you do for a daily basis, and even the work and service you give your body and yourself. These are all really important themes for you guys, but also your spiritual work, your soul's health, your mental health. That's now what the focus is. So use this full moon in Virgo as your opportunity to retreat and to make sure that you're taking care of your soul and filling your own cup away from the distractions of outside society. Now, Libras, the retrograde, the Mercury and Venus retrograde are both in your seventh house. So while I'm encouraging you to go off on your own and be by yourself, I am also encouraging you to reflect on that person in your life that maybe is your spouse or your business partner or your best friend, but it's that person that you share that deep, close one-to-one relationship with. This person might be somebody that you have to reflect on that relationship. And this could simply just be reflecting on your marriage and saying, how could I show up differently? Maybe I could prioritize my partner's needs in a better way. Maybe I could communicate, what I need from my partner in a different way. Maybe that's the feeling that you're experiencing as both Venus and Mercury retrograde through your seventh house. You might be reflecting a lot on marriage, on partnership, on old commitments. If you're single, you might be going back over those longer partnerships that you had and what went well and what didn't. And maybe you feel the urge to reach out to that person. I know a lot of people say, don't text your ex during Mercury retrograde. But isn't that the whole point? Isn't that what the retrograde was designed for, in a sense, for us to have that opportunity to go back and look at something that happened before and maybe revisit it because it's a retrograde and we're supposed to revisit things from the past? Again, don't make a dumb decision. Don't reach out to the person that you know is toxic. But if there's unfinished business and that this retrograde is bringing that up for you, allow that conversation to take place. The only advice I'd give is don't necessarily make any big decisions until after retrograde ends, which will be by mid-April. I would recommend you could start to seriously look at the moves that you're going to make. But up until then, just sit with the idea, have that conversation, feel things out, see where it's going, see how it feels for you. And again, just reflecting on marriage, on partnership might be a major theme for you over these next few weeks, over the course of March. And so work with this time as an opportunity to sit with not only what you need in that 12th house, but also with the people and especially the person in your life, that special partner in your life. What do they also need during this time? Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Scorpios, this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo is activating your 11th house. Now, thinking back to what was going on for you back in September, consider what storyline began for you, especially in the topic of friends and dating. You might have experienced a new friendship, a new dating situation popping up. You might have started to even date a friend that maybe was always just a friend. Whatever that is for you, Scorpios, the 11th house does deal with our friends, our social circle, the groups of people that we associate with, and the organizations that we're a part of. And so, this particular eclipse, being so active in this area of your chart, is definitely bringing up the people in your life. And you might have some major changes going on in this area of your life. You might have friendships starting for you around this time. You also might have some friendships ending. And because it is a South Node eclipse, the South Node is all about releasing and letting go. And usually, this is the things that are comfortable but are not helping us to grow. And so, more than likely, Scorpios, you're going to have to take some inventory of your friend circle, of your social circle. And if the people in your friend group are helping you to grow and get to the next level of life, then they'll probably stick around, right? You probably want to keep them around. But if you are finding that there's people that are holding you back, if your circle is starting to feel like a cage, And you realize that maybe the relationships, the friendships, maybe the teams you're a part of, or any sort of organization you find yourself in, if it's not conducive for your growth, if what you know your soul needs to be doing is not aligned with what these people are doing, then the answer is more than likely to release and detach from these people. Situations might even happen to where this already is a possibility and all you have to do is just pull the trigger, right? That's often what occurs during eclipses is we are given these circumstances that allow us to make the final call, but ultimately it was put into our lap because that's what needed to happen. And so, because it's the South Node, again, don't be surprised if you realize that certain friendships are no longer meant for you during this time. That's normal. Again, pay attention to the people that walk into your life because you also might have some really amazing opportunities coming your way from your friends and from whatever people are part of your larger social network. Now, again, Scorpios, you've got that Mercury retrograde in Aries, and this is moving through your sixth house. The sixth house deals with your health and it deals with the work that you do on a daily basis. And so, Aries energy can be very impulsive, it can be very brave. And very energetic. I wouldn't be surprised if you've got even some planets here that you really enjoy moving your body and taking care of it. But at the same time, with Aries in the sixth house, you might also have issues with inflammation and headaches and anything involving like heat because Aries is such a hot fire sign. Now, with Mercury and Venus both retrograding through Aries, please make sure that you are taking care of your physical body. This looks like making sure that you are working out, eating the right foods, going on walks, making sure that you're taking care of your skin, your hair, your nails. These are all really important things that you might find are necessary for you to revise and maybe even reassess during this retrograde. You might find that old health problems that might not have been fully put to bed come back up and they resurge, and you have to deal with that. And I hope that's not the case. But if it is, use this as a learning lesson to where you can see maybe how you can prevent these things in the future if it is a recurring issue. This also might be a really great time where you go back over old things that helped you in the past. Maybe, again, like if you lost weight in the past and you want to do that again, this might be the time. With Venus retrograde here, don't be surprised if a person or a partner in your life helps you to reach these physical goals, these fitness goals, or these health goals. Because the sixth house deals with health and Mercury and Venus are both hand in hand here, the conversations you're having with the people in your life, especially the women or the partners, especially romantic partners, they might be more focused on, again, taking care of your body, your physical health. So this is a great time to go to the gym with your spouse, maybe get a workout in with somebody and, somebody like a best friend or a partner, somebody that you care about that you can share in that experience together. But I would also say, go over the things that worked in the past. If you want to lose weight again and it worked in the past, something worked for you, go and do that again. If you worked with a personal trainer and they really helped you get results, go message that person again and see if they're available. These are the times when we can use the retrograde to our benefit by going back into the past and seeing what worked for us and then revising it and maybe again kind of reintroducing it into the present in order for us to see new and improved results. Sagittarius and Sagittarius Rising. Sagittarius, this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo is activating your 10th house. The 10th house is the house of your public career. It is the image that people see you for, the titles or the roles that you hold in this world. It is truly who you are in terms of the way the world sees you. Now, many times this does involve our career and our career path. And so, Sagittarius, you might be having a lot of changes going on when it comes to your career. Now, since September, I want you to consider what's been going on for you, not only in terms of career, but also in terms of your home life and your family life. Now, because we've got so many planets in the sign of Pisces that's activating your fourth house, you might have been having a lot more focus recently around your home life, maybe your physical home, such as like your home where you live. This also could involve your parents or even family members, relatives, even ancestry, going back into your childhood, anything that relates you back to that feeling of home and the people that you consider to be a part of that. Now, that has been the focus for you. And again, in September, we had that North Node eclipse in this house, which meant that in September, maybe even October, you more than likely realized some greater destiny that you had in terms of your home and your family life. And that could have been what has been the main focus for you these past few months. But all of a sudden enters into this, we've got this eclipse in Virgo in your 10th house. And now the focus is going from your home to your career. And it's like, okay, you've been really making sure that all matters on the home front are handled, but now let's turn and look at what's been happening in our career. And so, this eclipse in Virgo, you might be going back over your career with a fine tooth comb and seeing some situations unfolding that change things as it relates to your career. One thing I always say with eclipses is oftentimes after one is finished, especially after an eclipse series is finished, things don't ever usually go back to the way they were. And I don't want to say that in a negative way because honestly, this could be really positive. If you've been looking for change in your career, this might be exactly what happens for you. You might experience a promotion. You might have a change in the people that you work with or the location of your job. You might be, completely transferred to another department, or maybe you decide you want a whole nother career path. That all is possible for you, Sagittarius, right now. And I know you all love variety and you're not afraid of change and spontaneity. And so, this 10th house activation for you might be the invitation you've been waiting for to cut off whatever that job is or that person in your career that hasn't been serving you. Because the South Node is active during this eclipse and we are looking at themes of releasing and letting go, this could look like releasing something in your career in order to elevate to the next level. Now, Sagittarius, the Mercury retrograde in Aries is moving through your fifth house. Venus is also here. So this means a lot of emphasis has been on the fifth house. And because it's retrogrades, you might be doing a lot of reflection. Now, the fifth house deals with dating and children and romance. It also does deal with creativity and any sort of projects that you're throwing yourself into. So you might find, especially since March 1st, that in terms of your dating and relationship life, you've been reflecting a lot on how that's been going. Maybe old people that you dated in the past have, come back up and said hello for some reason. Maybe you've had to reanalyze the way that you personally show up in relationships and how you are in terms of romance and reevaluate that connection and relationship. As Mercury also goes retrograde in this house for you, the conversation will increase. This might be conversations around children, having children, parenting. This could be conversations around dating, being single, or maybe casually being with somebody, or seriously being with somebody. These are all conversations that are more than likely going to happen for you, and will force you to really look and reflect on what do you want out of this part of your life. What is it that you desire? Do you want to be in a relationship and to be dating somebody? Do you want to have a romantic style of connection, or maybe not? Maybe you have a more, practical style where you don't really care. You also might have a lot of conversations again around children and how you show up with children. But I also want to emphasize, if children have nothing to do with your life, this also might relate to your inner child, which every single one of us does have. And so, Sagittarius, utilize this retrograde, this Mercury and Venus retrograde in your fifth house, to look at how you show up in these important relationships in your life, while at the same time take advantage of this eclipse in your 10th house by activating new levels of growth, expansion, and maybe even change as it relates to your career. Capricorn and Capricorn Rising. Capricorns, this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo is activating your ninth house. Now, the ninth house is the house of foreign travel. It's also the house of philosophy, religion, spirituality, and higher education. This is the house that allows us to expand our mind and to see things from a different perspective, oftentimes a different perch. Now, we've had a lot of focus recently and going even back to September regarding your third house. Now, the third house deals with your local neighborhood, your local environment, as well as your way of communication, the things that you learn, the things that you teach, and ultimately the neighbors and the people in your life that you see on a day to day basis. Now, the ninth house and the third house combined are really the houses of mental expansion. They're the houses of teaching and learning. They comprise our school system. The third house does deal with K through 12, whereas the ninth house deals with all things after that, namely like college and university. And so these topics for you since September might have been experiencing a lot of change. I really encourage you, Capricorn, to think back to around September 18th, anytime around September, October, because that was when you initially began the story that we started here. With the Pisces Virgo eclipses starting up in your third and ninth houses, this is when it began. And right now, when we have this full moon eclipse in Virgo in your ninth house, this is the second chapter of the story. The first chapter was back in September, and it was actually in your third house of teaching, learning, communication, your local environment, and even your siblings. Now, this might have began something for you where you realized what you're meant to be doing in some way, shape, or form. And that was because that was activating the North Node in Pisces, which is the North Node of destiny. And so in September, you might have realized what you were meant to be learning about, teaching about, studying. You might have realized where you're meant to go, where you're meant to travel to, what communities you're meant to be a part of, how you're meant to think and speak and express your ideas. You might have had a real clarity or maybe even a huge shift that happened where something changed and it completely altered the way you saw things in these areas of life. Now, this is the continuation of that. This is the second chapter of that story that's now taking that same idea of what we're meant to be doing, and it's basically showing us what we need to release in order for that to happen. In the ninth house, we might have to release our bigger beliefs in order to get clear on the practical things that we need to handle on a day-to-day basis. We also might find that by going on a long distance trip or just simply being offered exposure to different cultures, information, and philosophical viewpoints, we might alter and shift the way that we see things. And this might in turn change where we show up on a daily basis, how we show up on a daily basis, and the way we think about the world. This Virgo eclipse, you might go back to school. You might decide that you want to you want to go and get a higher education, right? You want to increase your education. This might look like going back to college or university, getting a certification degree or a trade school. Anything like that is a very ninth house topic, Capricorn. And because you are so focused on upward mobility and achievement, I wouldn't be surprised if this particular eclipse and even going into the next future eclipses, which are going to continue, by the way, until 2027, the story just started and it's going to continue to unfold. You might find that changes are occurring for you that are really helping you to realize what it is that you're meant to be understanding about the world and also experiencing. Your mind and your perspective of things might be radically shifting and changing during this time. Now, let's talk about the Mercury retrograde in Aries because this is also pretty significant, Capricorn. This is showing up in your fourth house. The fourth house deals with your home and your family life. And with a Mercury retrograde, along with Venus also being retrograde here, there's a lot of focus and a lot of reflection being done around your home life, your family, your parents, even going back to your childhood. You might be having to think back on things that relate to situations that were years ago, but suddenly maybe the conversation is coming back up either within yourself or even with a family member, maybe a relative. And now this is something that is way more center stage than it's ever been. This might be you doing a lot of inner child work, going back over childhood traumas. I know these are things that aren't super fun, but they are beneficial, and retrogrades are oftentimes our invitation to basically look in the rearview mirror and to consider what happened in the past and how that's affecting us today. And so this also could be conversations with family members, parents, but it even could be things regarding your physical home, right? Because the fourth house isn't just about your ancestry and your childhood and your parents, although it is, but it also might involve your physical home. You know, with two retrogrades here, you might be rethinking about how you want to renovate, right? You might be considering maybe you want to go and move back somewhere you used to live. You might be inviting somebody to come live with you, maybe somebody that lived with you before. And this is kind of like a re invitation to that sort of living situation. Anything involving past situations regarding your home and family could come up. Now, Venus is here, which means that money could also be a topic here. Money that's been owed to you or money that you owe regarding your home or your family, maybe money that you owe to a family member. Anything of that nature could also be coming up during the retrograde. Now, the retrograde will really be at its most potent time, especially in your fourth house, during the month of March. By April, it will shift into your third house, so things will definitely look a little bit different. But in the month of March, really take this time, take use of this time, and learn how to work with the reflections that are coming up. You might have to really go back and have that flash from the past, and it might not always be as comfortable, but retrogrades are also so beneficial because they allow us to pump the brakes, to slow down, and to really think about what's going on and to plan for what's to come. anything in terms of your home, your living situation, your family life. Consider what you want to change moving forward and use this retrograde as your starting point. Once retrograde ends by mid April, you'll be able to fully move forward with whatever plans you've laid out, and you'll be able to see the upgraded version of all the dreams that you laid out ahead of you. Aquarius and Aquarius Rising. Aquarius, this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo is activating your eighth house. Now, the eighth house deals with financial matters, such as the money that you receive from other people in your life, like inheritances and your spouse's income, and any credit cards or loans and debts. All those things are eighth house topics. The eighth house also does cover some more intimate and vulnerable things such as sex and even topics related to death. Now, the eighth house is definitely a mixed bag, and having eclipses here can certainly bring up old, maybe even deeper, thoughts and feelings that we might not really ever look at in, broad daylight. Because again, the eighth house can oftentimes be things that are more secretive, right? We don't often talk about the money we make or about our sex life, but these are eighth house topics. Now, Aquarius, I want to ask you what's been going on financially for you ever since September. Because in September, we began the eclipse series that activated your financial houses in your birth chart. The second house, which is all about the money that you make, and the eighth house, which is a lot to do with the money that you receive from other people. Now, back in September, that full moon eclipse was activating the North Node, which is currently in your second house. The North Node is the planet of destiny, right? It's the point of destiny in our charts. It's not a planet, but it is a point in astrology that represents our destiny. And so you might have realized back in September what you were meant to do in terms of the money that you are meant to make, the way you're meant to make it, and how you're supposed to feel about that, right? Now, moving into this full moon eclipse in Virgo in your eighth house, you might have to look at not only the money that you're getting and how you get it, but also, are you open to receiving money from other people? And how does that relationship work? Do inheritances play a part in your income? What about credit cards? Do you have old debts and loans that you know you need to repay and you just haven't gotten to it? Maybe that might be the invitation to do so, right? Again, there's so many ways that financially you might be having to change, or major shifts might be happening for you during this time, right? Full moons make us feel a lot, and eclipses usually bring major changes that we really can feel the effects of. And so financially, you might be experiencing a new influx of money. Your income might have shot up, and you're over here really excited about all the abundance in your life. And now, eighth house eclipse, you're learning how to work with sharing it with other people. You might have the opposite effect where maybe money was tight ever since September, and now you're learning about how to ask for help, right? Getting that financial support, which is a very eighth house topic. Not always are eclipses comfortable, but they are necessary. Eighth house stuff is usually the vulnerable, more intimate things that force us to look at things that we don't often want to look at. And so, therefore, yes, we need to be comfortable with being seen. And sometimes, especially with a bright, illuminating energy like a full moon, it can make us want to look the other way. So, Aquarius, I really encourage you during this full moon eclipse in Virgo to run that fine tooth comb over all of the things that are more sensitive to you, especially in terms of money and even in terms of sex. Again, eighth house can deal with that intimate part of the energy exchange we have with another person. Energy exchange is not always financial, it can also be physical. And of course, sex is a component of that. So you might have a new change in your sex life during this eclipse. Things might change here, and this might be comfortable or it might not be. But whatever that is for you, Aquarius, this is your opportunity to lean into whatever changes are happening and know that they are here for your greater good. They're here to help you get back on track financially, or they're here to help you elevate financially. They're also here to help you go deeper spiritually, emotionally, and sexually, so that way you can unlock new levels of strength and increased vulnerability, which ultimately can be the biggest gift if you truly allow it to be. Now, Aquarius, this Mercury retrograde in Aries is in your third house. Venus is also here too. So you've got a lot of third house energy. The third house deals with communication, and it deals with our thought processes, our neighborhood that we visit on a day to day basis, our neighbors, our siblings. It's all the stuff that we see and interact with every single day. right? So it's the people we see, the neighbors that we pass on our way to work. It's our siblings that we grew up with and we saw on a daily basis. It's also the information that we're learning and taking in and also exchanging with other people. Hence why the third house is the house of communication. Now, Mercury is the planet of communication. And Aquarius, you all are an air sign, so you know a thing or two about communication. So having this retrograde, this Mercury retrograde, no less, in your house of communication, you will more than likely be reflecting on how you think, how you speak, and how do you express your thoughts in a way that's constructive, but also with Venus involved in a way that helps people, in a way that helps you connect with people. And Aquarius, I love Aquarius energy, but there is that tendency to detach, right, from other people. There is a sense of being more aloof. As an Aquarius, you enjoy taking some time and kind of removing yourself. With Venus here, the challenge might be to connect and go back and have those conversations where maybe before you disconnected, that's the word, you disconnected, maybe this eclipse and with the retrograde all combined, you might have to reconnect with people. Maybe that's sexually with that eighth house, maybe that's mentally with that third house, but there might be a huge theme here where you're having conversations and you're going and you're connecting with people that you might have not connected with in a while, or you're having those conversations that you know you've been needing to have, Aquarius, but you just didn't get to it. I wouldn't be surprised if during this retrograde, especially throughout the month of March, that those conversations are had. And yeah, they will more than likely help you in more ways than you can imagine in terms of elevating the way that you think, the way that you speak, and the way that you also relate to the people in your life. Pisces and Pisces rising. Oh man, Pisces, I think the best was definitely saved for last because when it comes to you all, the eclipses are really taking you guys for a journey. How have you been doing since September? That's my first question. Before I even get into this full moon eclipse in your seventh house, we've had a story going on for you all since September, and I really encourage you to consider what the heck that is. When that first eclipse in Pisces started and it was on September 18th, 2024, that was in your first house. And there might have been a lot of major physical or just personality changes that happened for you around that time. Major life shifts, upgrades, downgrades, right? Something happened for you. Some story began for you back in September, October time. As we now approach this full moon eclipse in Virgo in your seventh house, the story now enters chapter 2. Chapter 1 was really all about you, Pisces, right? The first house is all about you. The north node of destiny is actually in your first house and it's been there since January. It'll be there until 2027. So yeah, there's a lot of work happening for you all around who am I, and not only that, but who am I meant to be? What is my personal destiny? That's a big question that you might be asking yourself. As we get into this full moon in Virgo, this eclipse in Virgo is now in your seventh house. When the seventh house gets eclipsed, we're really focusing on the relationships and the partnerships in our life. The seventh house is traditionally known as the house of marriage. And while the first house is the house of the self, the seventh house is the house of the other person in our life. Oftentimes, that person that we consider to be like our spouse, that one to one partner in our life. If you're not in a relationship and you're not married, this can be a best friend or even a business partner. It's not always romantic, it can be platonic, but it is traditionally the house of marriage because it does involve any partnership that involves a legal contract. And so having this eclipse here means that there's going to be some changes involving your level of commitment with this person. This could look like a shift in terms of maybe you begin living with a person you've been dating. This could look like the person that you've been living with and dating. Now, all of a sudden, things end and you shift that, and you go back to maybe being on your own. Um, a lot of things can happen when it comes to relationships. I don't necessarily need to list examples, but whatever that is, Pisces, this eclipse is more than likely going to be a time of releasing something involving how you operate in relationships. Maybe there's a habit or a pattern, some way of behaving with your partner or with any sort of, committed partner in your life. And this eclipse, some situation or circumstance could come up for you that asks you to really consider if you actually want that to be the way it is, because more than likely there's going to be some changes happening here. Eclipses, oftentimes when they come in, they don't leave us the way they found us. You all right now are getting eclipses in your first and seventh house. These are the most potent houses to have eclipses in, especially as it relates to you and your physical body, who you are. Now, with the seventh house active, we are now also looking at not only yourself, Pisces, but the other person in your life. And are you showing up for them? Are they showing up for you? Is this relationship working? Or because it's the South Node involved, does this relationship need to fall by the wayside? Do I need to break up with this person or move on? Because let's be honest, in September, you realized something, Pisces. You realized something about yourself and what you deserve. This eclipse in Virgo now, a couple months later, is now looking at you to decide, have you gotten what you deserve or not? Because once you've realized that you are not getting what you deserve, this eclipse, and honestly, maybe even before you realize it, this eclipse is more than likely going to take out the things that you don't need. Because ultimately in September, you defined what you wanted, you defined your destiny. And this eclipse is going to clear out space for you to reach that. If the person you're with is the person you're meant to be with, then they will stick around because they are not taking up space. They are actually adding to the space. But if the person that you're with is simply an energy vampire and they are not helping you to reach that higher destiny that the North Node in your first house is continuously reminding you of, then I'm sorry, Pisces, but I would not be surprised if this eclipse is that moment where you release that person out of your life. And trust me, it will be for your greater good because that's what eclipses do. You are being put in the passenger seat for a reason so the universe can sit in the driver's seat and steer you on the path that you're meant to be on. Now, Mercury is retrograding in Aries through your second house, Pisces. And I want to talk about this really quick because not only is Mercury here, but Venus is here. And so, with Mercury and Venus retrograding in your second house of money and earned income, you might also not only be looking at your relationship with the person in your life that you might be together with or maybe even married to, but you're also looking at your relationship with your finances, with your money. And so Pisces, the main themes for you right now are truly that of love and money. When it comes to your finances, you might be having to revise your spending patterns, your budget. You might be having to consider how you earn your money and is it conducive for your growth? Is it conducive for your sense of self worth and your value of who you are? Because the second house is not just money, it's also the way that you feel about yourself, your self esteem. And oftentimes, yeah, that can be linked to what you have, what you earn. Is this in alignment with yourself? Do you feel good about the money you make and how you make it? Because let me tell you, Pisces, if you don't, then this retrograde might be your invitation to reconsider your income, the income streams and sources that you have coming in, or even just your spending habits and what you have your expenditure going out. This might be really important. Now, I want to also say because Venus is also retrograding through here, this might benefit you. Normally, whenever I see a retrograde in the second house, I do like to warn you to just, save your money because sometimes retrogrades can also be a pullback. But with Venus here, there might also be a theme where you might get money that you were owed from the past because Venus is a very beneficial planet. Venus can also bring good fortune. So having Venus retrograding through your second house, not the worst thing, but it also might be money from somebody that is like a partner, a business partner, or even a close family member, a lover, somebody like that could also be a source of income, or you might be reflecting on the money that you get from the relationships in your life, while at the same time, you also might be receiving money that you were owed from previous experiences. So, whatever that is, Pisces, you've got a lot going on financially, but especially you've got a lot going on personally and interpersonally. So, take this time, take advantage of this eclipse, surrender and go with the flow. I know you're Pisces and you're really good at that. I really recommend you tap into that quality within yourself and allow yourself to just go with the flow during this eclipse season. Things might feel chaotic. Things might feel up and down. You might be met with a lot of one to one interpersonal dynamics that you might not have been fully ready for, or maybe you were ready for them. And it's like, okay, the gloves are off. Whatever that is, I wish you the best. And I hope that the experiences and circumstances play out in a way that allow you to elevate and to enjoy not only who you are, but the people in your life, and to really establish that healthy balance of loving yourself, but also loving the other person in your life, and looking at how you can establish that harmony between the two of you. You just listened to all that information about what you can expect for this full moon in Virgo, as well as the Mercury and Venus retrogrades. And if that information was great, but just not enough, hit the link below for a full personalized birth chart reading. This is step one in understanding your cosmic blueprint and knowing the energy that makes up who you are. I would love to hop on Zoom with you and we can fully uncover all of the things in your birth chart that make you tick. If that's something that's of interest to you, I also offer gift cards if you want to give that to somebody else. But ultimately, you guys, I really hope this information helped. I know that this month of March is a doozy. A lot of us are saying buckle up and get ready because this is a roller coaster of a month. March Madness is nothing to play with, but you have now armed yourself with awareness. And what better can we do than to prepare ourselves for whatever chaos lies ahead? So with that, if you got value from this video, please make sure that you hit the like button. Comment below, let me know how eclipse season is going for you, and share this out with any family and friends that you know could also benefit from this information. I send you all so much love, and I will see you all again in the next video.